Hey, what's up? This is Harry Wagner from Harry Situations. And today we're going to talk about off-road recoveries. So that includes all sorts of different equipment and techniques. We're going to talk about kinetic straps. We're going to talk about different types of shackles, shovels, traction boards, and more.
Hey man, can you just help me get out of here? I got to deliver this DoorDash.
Stay with us. Give a man a DoorDash, he'll eat for a day. But teach him how to DoorDash, and he'll eat for a lifetime. Or something like that. The analogy here is we want to be self-sufficient. So the first thing we're going to do is go over some equipment and techniques you can use to self-recover. First up, a shovel. Sometimes all you need to do is a little bit of digging to get yourself out of a situation. So I have some DMOS shovels here. The thing I like about these, they're aluminum, they're pretty lightweight. They're compact, which is nice. You don't need this all the time, so they don't take up a lot of room, but they're pretty sturdy. This is the Stealth XL. This is the Delta. I carry the Delta on my Ram. A little more of a traditional shovel. It's good for like putting out fires and things like that, you know, when you're done with your fire pit and you want to smother it. This one, the Stealth XL, more for snow and sand. You know, big, lot of surface area. One thing I really like about these is it's basically in double shear, right? The handle goes through the middle of the shovel. And so even when it's full of sand or snow and you have a lot of leverage on it, it's not gonna break because it's supported here and here. So I've heard some people complain, oh, these shovels aren't super strong. That is not my experience. I mean, if I'm gonna put a fence in my backyard, yeah, I'm gonna use a shovel from the hardware store, but to carry with me on the trail, I think these really hit the sweet spot as far as being compact, durable, and being able to move a lot of material. Another thing you can do that doesn't cost any money at all is air down your tires if you're stuck. So what that does is provide more flotation, kind of allow you to get up on top of soft surfaces. So I've got some air down devices here, but you know, worst case scenario, you're using your key and you're pushing in the Schrader valve. Now, if you have Nitto tires, you probably don't need to worry about getting stuck. I'm running Nitto's beefy trail grapplers on my truck. And if you like what we're doing here and you appreciate it, please like and subscribe. Another item you can use for self-recovery is traction boards. So very popular in the overland community, and they do really serve a purpose. These are Maxtrax, which have kind of become synonymous with traction boards. They're the original in my mind, and I think still the best. They cost a little more than some of the competition, but you get what you pay for. Particularly in cold environments, some of the cheaper options I've seen crack, they get brittle and they break. Another thing I like about the Maxtrax, I have 4 of them here. They nest together super tight, so they don't really take up a lot of room, which you might notice is a theme with the shovel, with the Maxtrax, everything. You don't want it to be too bulky because then it just takes up a lot of space. And these are things you're not going to use, hopefully, on a day-to-day basis. But, you know, you will use them when you get stuck, and there's no shame in getting stuck. The analogy I make is to, like, if you go skiing and people say, oh, I didn't fall down all day. Well, that might be something to be proud of. You might not just be trying very hard. Sometimes it's okay to fall down when you're skiing. It's okay to get stuck when you go off-road. If you have the skills and the equipment you need to get unstuck, there's nothing to be afraid of. These are the Maxtrax MK2s. I also have their Extremes. I carry those on my Ram. The Extremes actually have metal lugs that are replaceable. I like those in particular. I race with a 6100 truck, and that truck has a really loose torque converter, so it'll just be like idling and then the tires spin. You know, you want to resist wheel speed on these, and something like my Ford that's geared down real low, I can use them to get up on top of snow or sand. But if you have something that isn't geared very low and it spins the tires, I find the Extremes are really helpful in that situation and worth the extra money. If you have another vehicle with you, there's a lot easier ways to recover than shoveling or using Maxtrax, although you still might use them in a complicated recovery to assist. But really, a strap is the best way to get out if you're in a soft environment, you've slid into a ditch, maybe you come across a vehicle that's slid into a ditch and you want to help them out, like this guy here. So while all these items are great for self-recovery, honestly, the easiest way to get out of a situation is to have someone pull you out with a strap. So you didn't go alone, right? If you have a second vehicle with you, you might just need a little tug to get out. Now, you might need to dig and you might need to use your Maxtrax in order to get out in addition to pulling if it's real complicated or your vehicle's real mired. But I've found often a simple tug might be all you need. Kinetic ropes differ from a tow strap in that they stretch. So a tow strap is not designed to stretch, it's static. These are Bubba ropes. I like this brand. They're Kinetic ropes and they'll stretch up to 30% of their length and then sort of slingshot out. So you can even have a lighter vehicle pull out a heavier vehicle. You'll notice I have two different straps here. This one is 3/4 of an inch. I carry this in my Jeep. This one, the big Bubba, 1.25 inches, I carry in my Ford. And the reason being, this is a much bigger, heavier truck. So you want a bigger strap to go with that truck. But a smaller strap makes sense for a lighter vehicle because this is going to stretch more easily with a lighter vehicle than this strap will. So this could be overkill if you have a Jeep or a Tacoma or something like that. On one end of the spectrum, some people say they retire their rope after 30 pulls. The other end of the spectrum, I know people that use their rope until it breaks. What I like to do is I find these will over time not return to their original length if you've used them enough or if they've been used beyond their working load limit. In those instances, you'll find that the pull is really harsh. In that case, I would replace the strap, but otherwise, I've had this one for years and it's still working great. You'll notice this strap has eyes at the end. You never want to use one of those cheap parts stores ropes that have hooks on them. Those hooks can become projectiles. Other things can become projectiles too. You never want to hook up to like a tow hitch or a tow ball because those aren't made for shock loads and you can shoot that, it becomes a cannonball and can really do some damage. So with an eye, if you have a hook, like most Jeeps have an open hook on the front of them, easy enough to just hook this over. The advantage to having a hook is it's really quick to put this on, right? The disadvantage is if it's loose, it might fall off, where a closed shackle or a closed sort of recovery point might take a little more time to attach. You might need another piece of equipment, but you don't have to worry about it falling off. Now, when it comes to shackles, this is called a bow pin shackle, a D-ring, a hard shackle. These, I like to put a zip tie around them. It keeps the pin from rattling loose on the road and coming out. Easy enough to cut when you need to use it. There's also soft shackles. It's got this knot. You just put this around it, cinch it up. These are really light. You can put them around tube work. They work really well for that. They're actually even will float. And I carry a couple of these. This is a Bubba Rope Gator Jaw I'm a big fan of. For bow pin shackles, sometimes this is a better choice if you're using like a receiver like this, or my Ford has attachment points that are designed to fit this pin. So a D-ring shackle is a better choice in that case. When you're loading a shackle like this, you always want it to load in this direction. You don't want to load it in this direction. It can deform and pull out. You might not be able to get the pin out. It might break. So always remember to load them in this direction. The same goes for a soft shackle. You don't want to be pulling on this knot and potentially pull it out. You want to pull like this so that you're not just pulling on that knot there. The first thing we want to do in this sort of situation is assess the situation. So we're going to look at things like the slope. It's going to be easier to pull downhill than it is to pull uphill, but being in a low traction environment, this truck might want to just keep staying in the ditch if we pull it downhill versus popping out if we come up. Another thing we want to look at is recovery points. If you find a car in the ditch, they might not have any recovery points, or you might have to search for them. On this truck, it's got very sturdy recovery points here in the front. Now this is the type of thing where you could use a soft shackle, but with these sharp edges, you really risk cutting this. This is really designed to use a D-ring shackle, which the pin fits perfectly right in here. Now with two recovery points, we can even use a little bridle that'll distribute the load, and it'll actually allow us to pull from the middle of the truck instead of from the side. You might want to pull from the side though. You might want to just put the ring on this end, since this is the side of the truck we want to pull out of the ditch. These are all the sort of things you want to keep in mind when you're taking the time to look at your recovery. Do the tires have snow built up in front of them? Use your shovel. Shovel it out. Maybe you put your Maxtrax in there to make things easier. Now you could use a winch. I made a whole video about winching, and that's something that you should watch if you haven't done so already. But a lot of times there are easier ways to recover a vehicle than using a winch. I really like the control of a winch when I'm in a real technical situation. In rock crawling, for instance, I find a winch is the way to go. If I'm in low traction environments, snow, sand, mud, I prefer using a strap because a lot of times you want to get a running start to pull someone out versus that slow controlled winching action. Another factor is it's not just low traction for this vehicle that's stuck, it's probably low traction for the vehicle that's performing the recovery. So if I tried to winch, it might just drag my truck towards this vehicle. Normally in my truck, I just carry the big strap, but since I have the smaller one and we're pulling out a relatively light Tacoma, I'm going to use this 3/4 inch Bubba rope Renegade here to perform this recovery. After assessing the situation for this particular recovery, I think the best course of action is going to be to use this bridle, use these 2 recovery points in the front with a Kinetic strap, pull uphill. Normally you would want to go downhill just because there's less resistance, but again, I'm concerned the truck's just going to stay in the gully. I want the nose to swing around. So we're going to go uphill, and I'm going to turn my truck around. You don't want to have the pull vehicle going backwards. It just shock loads the drivetrain in a direction that it's not really intended for. You know, if you think of like your rear diff, the pinion is on the bottom. It's designed to turn those gears moving forward. It's strongest in that orientation. Same with your transmission, transfer cases, the way all those gears are cut. So I'm going to turn my truck around and then make sure that I have real clear communication with myself and the other driver as far as what we're doing, hand signals for when we're ready to go, and things like that. Take your time. Now before I put this other pin in, I'm actually going to slide my recovery rope over this. That's just, we could use a soft shackle as well, but it's just one more piece of equipment that we need in order to perform the recovery. In general, I like to use as few attachment points as possible. If you're a rock climber, you're probably familiar with flaking your rope. We don't want to get any knots in this. We can kind of just zigzag it back and forth here. So we lay it on the ground, because I'm going to back up and get a running start when I pull this truck out. All right, so we've got everything hooked up here. What we're going to do is I want you to put your window down. I'll put my window down. Give me the thumbs up when you're ready to go. I'll give you the thumbs up. And then you can just leave the vehicle in neutral. We'll see if we can pull it out that way. If not, I'll have you try in gear and have the tires turning to help me. But this way won't shock load the drivetrain, so we'll try this first. And we'll have you out here in no time so you can go deliver that poke bowl before it gets cold. All right, that's it for this episode. Hopefully you learned a thing or two about how to get unstuck. Now, the 2 most common mistakes that I see people make are getting in a hurry and having too many chefs in the kitchen, so to speak. So in my experience, the best way to do that is to have the person who's in charge of the recovery be the one with the recovery vehicle. That doesn't mean you can't take advice from other people, but really there needs to be one person in charge making the decisions. And take your time. You don't need to be in a hurry. So with experience and the right equipment, you can get out of just about any situation. Tell me about your worst stuck below in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
Thanks for watching Driving Line. If you guys like this video, consider subscribing to our channel so you'll never miss any of the content we create here. Whether you're into trucks, Jeeps, imports, domestic vehicles, or anything in between, we are here to fuel your passion. So hit that subscribe button and we'll see you guys next time.